All right, all right, all right. Welcome to this episode of Warrior Week Parables from the Pit. My guest this week is Christian. Christian, welcome to the show, bro.
Thank you, Coach Sam.
Double graduate of Warrior Weeks. We'll talk about which ones, and we'll talk about why Christian is here for this conversation. But sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of Warrior Week Parables from the Pit. All right, Christian, welcome to the show, brother. So, graduate of Warrior Week 27 initially, right?
Yep, 27.
27, and I was in
March of 2016.
March of 2016, and graduate of Warrior Week 53, most recent one.
Yep.
Talk to us. What brought you to Warrior Week 27? Where was Christian at a time, and what made you consider coming into Warrior Week at that time?
A friend of mine, Kirk, texted me and he said, "You got to check out this video that I just saw. This guy's crazy, you know." And so he texted me a scene of Coach Garrett in Vegas in that Broadway thing.
Yeah.
And I watched it. I was riveted. It was compelling. There was such certainty and fire that I wanted, you know, and lacked at the time and wanted.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to you and we talked. And my buddy said, "Let's do this together."
Yeah.
And then I signed up, and then he didn't.
Oh, there you go. And you came to Warrior Week 27. I specifically remember, the first couple of hours we were going through some physical exercise, and you carry a smile during the brutal physical experiences, and it was kind of like a Zen mindset. Talk to us about what were you told?
I was so happy to be there. We were blindfolded and we were put on the grinder, and I'd heard your voice and Garrett's voice in the pre-work, you know, on audio. But then even though I was blindfolded, I'm lying there, cold water being poured on me, and then Garrett's voice came, and I was just like, "Oh, this is awesome!" You know, I was just so happy to be there.
And then quickly you were told to get rid of the fucking smile.
Get the fucking smile off your face or get back in the ice water, which I think I went in about 3 times.
So, yeah, it did take a while. And literally we were at one point, I was like, man, I think he's literally like, that's who he is. He's a man with a smile. Like literally no matter what, he's going to carry that fucking smile. It's not like he's laughing at anything. It's not like it's just mocking at anything. He's not like if it's pretending to do that as a technique to remain calm. It's just like literally who fucking Christian is. And at a time, of course, you know, we had to come to peace with it and say, okay, well, that's who he is, you know? And, but you did get through all Warrior Week, and and then life went on, right? Life went on, and then you knock at the door at 53. What happened between 2 years of, let's say, gap, almost 2 or 3 years, I would say? Where did life bring you?
I stayed connected
Yep.
to the message, and there was such a connection to this daily work that we were to do, and it in the years leading up to Warrior, there's certain areas of the 4 areas of our lives that had slipped or fallen in different ways, and that can bring a heaviness or a weight, because there's sometimes a guilt with things you're not doing or things that you should be doing. Even one of the guys in 27, I was reminded today as I was thinking about this that he shared in one of our groups, he actually had a safe in his house, and he had written in there all the things he hated about himself, and he had taken that paper and put it in that safe, the things he was disappointed, the shame, the guilt. And he, about a few months after Warrior Week 27, he called me and he said, "I took that stuff out and I burned it." And just I think, guys, you know, when you're in your 20s, nothing's really going wrong, really. But you get in your 30s, 40s, and disappointments can build up, guilt can build up, and it clogs your energy and gets in the way. And so there was just a freedom and a fire that came out of, you know, the question, guys, we've just hardly met, and we're in the pre-work, and it's like, what's the worst thing you've ever done? Literally the worst thing you've ever done, and you're sharing this with guys, and it's nice to know that there's another group of guys around that you can have a camaraderie with and move forward from that place to a new place.
Beautiful. And so let's talk about you, a Christian. As you mentioned, in the 20s, you're kind of like going, and nothing is stacking up in terms of obstacles on the way, right?
Sure.
And if they do, and we all think that we can actually burst through them.
Right.
Talk about your 20s leading to 30s and 40s, and so talk about this concept of obstacles stacking up in your life.
A simple thing, like in the core 4 work, there's a daily requirement for something to do with spiritual meditation or journaling. And in my teens and in my 20s, a thing that I valued was reading a spiritual book like the Bible. And I remember even in high school, I had a group of buddies, and we would get up in the morning, 5:30 in the morning, and some of us sit on the edge of our bathtubs to stay awake, reading a chapter of the Bible. And then we would talk about it with each other, what we had read. And then and whether it's a Bible or whatever you do, it's irrelevant, but it's the fact that as I moved in my 30s and got busy with businesses and kids and marriage, and it just becomes almost too much. And then I moved away. And so I had this real guilt that I knew that I wanted to do and needed to do these spiritual activities, but I wasn't doing them. And so that guilt was building up. And just through the simple process of the core 4 and the accountability of the group of guys, all of a sudden I'm doing things that I wanted to do, knew I needed to do, but now I was accountable to do them. And
so as a result of not being connected to that side of yours, because let's be honest, like you in your 20s are very different from the majority of people in their 20s, especially now. Majority of people in their 20s are waking up with their fucking head in the toilet because they're blacked out from the night before partying.
Sure.
If I mean majority of that was me, but there is a lot of people in their 20s that are not waking up first thing in the morning and reading the Bible to compare notes with their buddies. So to begin with, you were associated in a group that made that brought something unique to you, right? Because you guys were reading about something and you were discussing about the same thing, different point of views. You missed that because that was an association that was almost self-created and that brought you very close to a group of people. That fade away because life got busy, right? So let's talk about how that got fade away, right? Because that's not how we don't really go back and consider like what the fuck happened.
Right.
We label it as life got busy. Let's break down life got busy and let's really look at what happened. So there you go on your routine. What was the first thing that kind of took away your attention and your desires from that?
It's so subtle, isn't it? It's like one day at a time. Just all of a sudden, one day I probably didn't do it.
Yeah.
And then the next day I didn't do it. And then all of a sudden I started telling myself stories like, well, maybe it doesn't matter, or I really don't have time. And so these stories build up and this slow erosion, and all of a sudden you wake up or you don't wake up and you're just in this different place.
Yeah.
And you're kind of confused. You don't know why. And it took Wake Up Warrior and that call to wake up to.
When did you get married? How old were you?
I was 27.
27. So when you got married, did some of those routine vanished away because now you were married?
It does change things. I had my tribe of guys, and now that tribe had less meaning a little bit. And
where if you go back and you would say, did the tribe got less meaning because you give it less meaning, or you were deprived from it? What would you say?
And we moved. We moved to a different country after I got married.
Oh, you did? Okay, from what country to go?
From Canada, from Alberta, Canada, down to...
Oh, Canada, mon pays de merveille. Okay, so you were in Alberta.
Yeah, And now we've got the tools, the connectivity tools.
Right,
and
right. You didn't have
I
that back in
didn't
the day.
have
So you
that,
moved
so
from
it's
Alberta to
to Tucson, Arizona.
okay, and you got married there, right?
Got married up in Canada.
Got married, and you moved to
and
Tucson,
down we
Arizona.
went, yep.
So talk about how your marriage affected your participation, not the location, but how that marriage affected that at the time.
I don't know that it had any particular impact.
Go back now that you're divorced,
Right.
right? It's easier to look at that.
Right.
The question I want to figure out is this: was it you? Was it you that left that, or do you feel that you had to because now you got married? Because some fucking script somewhere said the minute you get married, your focus has to be completely on this.
Right.
What was it?
I think the feeling was that the focus had to be on work now. I felt this deeper sense of responsibility
Yeah.
to produce, to work. And really that's the thing that took over.
Yeah.
Was I just was working, constantly, pay off student debt, try to save up for a house, all the things that you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I realized recently, this is very interesting. There, in the core 4, we've got body, being, balance, and business.
Yeah.
I had this, for me, a deep revelation that of those 4 areas, I can't ask you to go exercise for me or work out for me. I can't ask you to hear the voice for me or take action or, have a relationship with my kids for me. But in business, we're actually allowed to get help. It's actually the one area of the core 4 that it's totally okay to get help.
Yeah, yeah.
And yet it's the one area that guys dive into 40, 60, 80 hours a week, never putting up their head to focus on the other 3. And it's the only one you can get help in. And
That is true.
I've really had this revelation recently that I'm looking to get more and more help in my business. I'm getting a good team around me that can help so that I can take my body to the gym, the only thing I can do, and I can take my daughters for ice cream and hang out with my son, and so that's a real deep revelation.
That makes sense. Going back to your marriage, you get married, right? At this, because this is a pivoting point for a man's life, right?
Yeah.
You get married, and there's almost like this transcript, invisible transcript of what you're supposed to or should you do, right? It's okay. I need to build a future here for us, and that is a responsibility that I must carry now on my shoulder. That's a feeling that all of us got, right? Is that you're not alone in there. But then the thing that at that time we miss is the following: is that it is the beginning of becoming the one-dimensional or two-dimensional douchebag.
Totally.
Like that's the journey of the one-dimensional douchebag journey. Because now you're like, I'm gonna focus on work, I'm gonna focus on my wife.
Right.
And you are, most guys are leaving their bodies and their spiritualities as a sacrifice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or some guys are just going to say, and this is the majority of dudes, I'm going to focus on building the business. And in a very indirect way, they're going to leave their focus on their wives. They're going to leave their focus on spirituality. Yet, they're married and they love their wives, and yet they believe in God. But they don't develop that further than that what it is, other than they believe in it and they're faithful to it. And then they start pouring energy into 2 areas, business and body, right? They start working out and they start working out in business. Why do you think that they kind of choose those 2 areas specifically?
I think starting a business is the absolute gateway to being a one-dimensional douchebag.
Yeah.
If I had just had a job and got off at 4:30 and was home every night at 5:30 and had an evening, with my new bride, that would have been a totally different ball game.
Yeah.
I have training as a registered nurse, and so I was at the hospital working, but then I decided to start my first business, which was a residential assisted living home. And all of a sudden, all the skills I had as a nurse didn't apply anymore. And so I'm in this business, and I don't even have the skills or the tools I'm totally like I'm standing out in the rain. And it was working, it was successful, but I would start putting in 40, 60, 80 hours a week trying to do I was on the roof, doing the maintenance. Then I'd come down and do a tour.
Yeah.
Then I'd run in and try to figure out the bookkeeping, and it became completely overwhelming because most guys who start a business have a technical skill,
Sure.
but they don't have the other skills to actually run a business.
Yes.
And so I think that's where I got buried.
So initially at the beginning, guys pour into a business and body, and the question specifically, why those two areas? Obviously because, they want to see some success, because success becomes this ultimate place to end up. But there is no conversation around the cost
Right.
of letting go of some of the other areas, right? And inside of that's the hustle phase, which we were talking about. And because we can measure the hustle, we keep continuing. Like, you can't really measure spiritual development. You can't really measure the growth of your relationship with your wife and your kids. There's no measurement, or there's no actual, if you want, unit of measure that says here you are. But when it comes to business, money is a unit of measure. When it comes to your body, there are multiple units of measure that talks about, your performance either in running or in lifting and so on. So because it can be measured, and because there's a confirmation of the progress or the lack of it, right? We tend to, as guys, connect to that component, to that dashboard that tells us what? Whether we're good or we're not good, whether we're enough or not enough, whether we're worth it or not worth it.
Right, absolutely.
And then on the other side, when you come to your spirituality and just building a family, being a dad, being a husband, it's mainly all built on fucking assumptions.
Right.
And an assumption primarily used by our own comparison. So we compare ourselves with the majority of people. We compare ourselves with our association. And therefore we say, okay, if I'm doing this and my cousin is doing this and my dad did this and my neighbor did this, and therefore if I'm spending 2 hours at the baseball game with my son, then that says, okay, I'm a good dad. Where in reality, do you actually spend 2 hours with your son at the baseball game? Are you actually fucking present for 2 hours? Or are you just checking the box? So talk to me about how many kids you have.
Have 4.
4 kids, right?
The most powerful experience that I've had in Warrior was after going through the pre-work for Warrior Week,
Yep.
and then after going through Warrior Week was that 90-day challenge period after, where we're with a group of guys that we were with from Warrior Week. We have an assigned coach. We have weekly meetings, and we're forced to sit down to what you're talking about. We're forced to sit down and define a 90-day outcome in spirituality.
Yes.
In relationship. And at first, for many of us, very hard. We were writing down all these things, but they weren't really measurable, and they weren't really tangible. And we do gravitate towards the scorecard where you can see the thumbs up or the thumbs down, and
Right.
It's very gratifying. So going through the process in that 90-day challenge of defining outcomes in my spirituality, in my relationships, in my body, as well as in my business, and then having a daily accountability to taking an action in each area,
Yes.
is by far one of the most powerful things I've ever done in my life, and something that I hope every man on the planet would have a chance to do.
You roll back to when you were in your 20s and you just got married, and now you got 4 coming kids, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
you didn't know, but that's what destiny had prepared for you. If you had the tools, and if you had the awareness that you have today, just like what you shared with me right now, how would life be different for Christian?
I would have slowed it all way down, and I would have had a much more of a faith and a belief that I could do simple actions every day in each area and eventually reach the desired outcome. I really would slow it down and work with that vision of who I want in these 90-day segments like we do. And just every 90 days, I would take actions in every area, and I would have a lot more faith
Yes.
that it was going to work out.
What was the period where there was the most chaos in your life?
It was right when we were about 2 years into the business, when we were working on growing and expanding, and the kids started coming, and some business partnerships, and especially the business partnerships.
Yes.
Because then I wasn't just accountable to myself. I was accountable to my partners.
Yes.
And you know, I had to be accountable to them, which is really not why I went in business in the first place.
That's right.
But I wanted to develop the skill set of being in a partnership. But that's when it got kind of almost overwhelming.
Uh-huh.
That's when I really dove in and tried to figure out this business thing. Only years later to realize I'd just been standing in the rain the whole time.
And so that was right around your beginning of your 30s, right?
That would have been, yeah. We were married 6 or 7 years before we started having kids. But
Okay.
that was in my 30s for sure.
In your
my
30s.
yeah.
And you got divorced how many years after?
19 years, just shy of 20.
Just shot 19 years after. And do you think the business had anything to do with that?
I think it was and then we went through a very difficult time
Sure.
financially in the whole real estate thing that happened there
In 2008.
in 2008, and I had there was no quick fix. There was no quick fix at all. I had all this real estate, and it was all negatively cash flowing, and I couldn't just give it away, or I was trying to fix it. And for over 3 years, I just worked on unwinding the mess that I'd created.
Mm-hmm.
And I had I had feelings of my self-worth, my feeling of, leading up to that, I thought, wow, I'm really doing good. And I compared myself with people around me, and it looked like I was excelling. And then at that time, it looked like I was way behind. And,
Yes.
and my self-worth dropped, and I didn't handle it right at all in my relationship with my wife.
Do you feel that circumstances made you retreat?
It definitely. Yeah, definitely. I pulled in when I should have been communicating more.
Yes.
I communicated less.
What was, like, let's talk about that. You kept it inside for a reason. Was it because you didn't want to cause more stress on her? So it was an act of sacrifice in a way. It's like, okay, I'm going to hold it inside. Like that's maybe the assumption. I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
That's the assumption. Like, okay, the reason why I'm not telling her that because I don't want to put extra stress on her plate.
Right.
She's already got 4 kids to deal with. Me telling her uncertainty about our finances is just not going to help the scenario better. So I might as well just keep it to myself.
Right.
You did that for years until it burst.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was that the logic you were telling yourself?
Yeah, I just figured I had to. I doubled down my efforts instead of having the faith and slowing things down like we talked about. I just doubled down on work, thinking I could work.
So you were more absent.
I was more absent.
So you were. So, but if you look back, right, and this is a pattern of behavior that we all carry, and as a result, separation happens and divorce happens because of years of. We think that we're doing the right thing, although we're doing exactly the opposite of what we should be doing in order to have this relationship develop. And it all starts from a very early age. You get married, and there is this invisible transcript that you said you have to produce, you're responsible, blah, blah. So the grind and the hustle begins. The grind and the hustle begins, the focus becomes business, and the majority of time, maybe, just maybe the body, if not, body, being, and balance, which is our relationship, stay steady.
Right.
We focus and we hustle and we hustle and we hustle. We come to a place where we have obstacles and situations, and the circumstances bring us to a place where things are not exactly how we planned it to be decades ago or 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever that was. Right? The model of me, I'm going to hustle to grind for success. You look back 10 years after, 12 years back, and it's like, okay, what is success? Is success owning a house? Is success having $1 million in the bank? Like, you start defining the milestone of being successful. And a lot of it comes from comparison, right? You compare to your cousin, right? You compare to your association. You compare on the outside. And then there's a checkpoint. And so you build these milestones, right? Maybe by the time I'm 40, I should fucking own a house. Or there are all these milestones. And then sometimes you sit back and you say, okay, in this particular scenario, I'm 33, I have 2 kids, I'm still renting an apartment. Man, I'm not successful, right? Your mind goes to there. But your mind is not really going in measuring the amount of success that you have in having 2 fucking kids and a wife at 33, which is a fucking miracle by itself. It's dismissed often. But that all starts from that invisible transcript that we adopt the minute we start getting married. People say, why is it that when people get married, things start getting different? It doesn't matter if you live with someone or you get married, it's just a piece of paper. It's not a piece of paper. It's the adaptation of that invisible transcript that we as men are fucking pre-programmed to adopt or download. Right? That's the systematic sedation of man, which started way, way early during the revolution of the Industrial Revolution time, where men were out of job and the women they started thinking about, how to cover the gaps, and ultimately leaving a place where men were more and more adoptive to an invisible transcript that was created because of scarcity.
Yeah.
So you fast forward to you and your wife inside of that space where things are not going well, circumstances financially are not going well. Instead of loading all that stress to her, you say, I'm going to keep it inside. And then the solution is, I'm going to go and make sure I double my effort in order to make things right. And in that decision, you're alone.
Yeah.
That's a decision you operated alone, meaning that you didn't tell her and you didn't tell anybody else. So it's all on you. Now, you're doubling your effort, which means you're not there for her. You're not there for her, and you're not communicating what is going on.
Right.
And on her side, she has no other choice but to start building her justifications and her assumptions.
Right.
Because she has zero visibility. Yet you're operating like this for years because your intention is not to stress her. Your intention is you want the best for her, but your action are absolutely absent.
Right.
She cannot guess the intention because of the action she sees. So if you roll back and you put her in your place, she doesn't see this guy, and this guy doesn't communicate on why, the guy's not there. The assumption starts happening it's like an attack on her certainty.
Right.
Am I enough for this guy? What am I doing wrong? Did I choose the right partner? I have been focusing on the kids, but is this the life that I sign up with just to raise kids? All those unanswered questions rise up. And because there's no answer for them other than her assumptions, then there's a stack of anxiety and stack of unanswered questions that happens that raises to what we call anxiety.
Absolutely.
And you bring it to a point where she can't take it anymore, and you don't understand what the fuck is going on, why she would not. You decide to tell her. She doesn't receive it because she's already formulated her assumption, and there you have it, right? There you have something that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And we look back and you say, man, this was an unnecessarily fucking gap.
Right, right. Yeah, totally didn't need to happen. The science and systems within Warrior,
Yeah.
had I had those systems and been implementing those
Yes.
processes, I wouldn't have even need to had my mind totally right. I would have just had to done like the core four.
Yes.
Just the daily, on balance, that daily communication with
Yes.
your spouse, daily communication with your children, the daily habit of doing that would have avoided a ton of pain.
Yes.
And the daily spiritual activity would have avoided a ton of pain.
Yes.
Having a new tribe, a new group of guys to be accountable to and someone to talk to about this, would have been amazing.
Yes.
So the Warrior systems and the core four, they preempt so many of these problems, and they can even get a guy through who doesn't have his mind totally right. They can pull him through a tough situation just
Yes.
by on the consistent actions that are required to do. And then, of course, then there's the stack.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. I was one of these guys, if you put me in a room with a therapist or a psychologist, I would just go crazy because I perceived it to be these guys that didn't have their own life together. I had no visibility into their relationship with their wife.
That is true.
I had no visibility in their relationship with their kids.
That is true.
And yet here they are giving me advice on how to make my life great. And it wasn't credible to me.
Correct.
And it was usually just a bunch of bullshit, too.
Yes.
But now with the stack, I'm able to go through a process every morning when I wake up. And that's what I found is working best, is to get it right when I wake up. And I go through this 10 to 45-minute process every day of self-therapy. I actually get to talk through the things that are bothering me, the things that are bugging me, the things that are clogging me up. And I get to work through that with the stack and gain clarity and perspective and combine that with the work of the core four. I notice a lot of the guys in the Warrior, they're sometimes more in their 30s and 40s, and but boy, as many guys who could get in here in their 20s and early 30s would be great, because there's so much that could be avoided just implementing the systems and having the tribe.
Yeah.
That's so powerful.
Rolling back to the first video that you saw, obviously you came to Warrior Week, and you've experienced your pit, the first one. What was your pit on your first Warrior Week?
The first Warrior Week, the divorce was pending.
It was it was pending.
Yeah, that was my big thing that I was going through at the time. The pain, and
what did you get out of the first Warrior Week that helped you just continue the following years and build upon?
I wasn't. It was too late. The damage had been done, so I wasn't able to save that first marriage. But there was such a strength in the community of guys that I was now associating with.
So you got association from that.
Absolutely. When you're in high school, you have everyone that you're around all the time. When you work a job, you have colleagues.
Yes.
But when you start a business, you're so alone, because there's really no one in your entourage that's kind of that's someone you confide in, or your
compadres,
Right. So I think a lot of guys who start a business lose that, and they get isolated.
Yes, they do, and that's the truth.
Yeah,
that's a very when you work somewhere. I remember working in a restaurant, and you were part of a group. You fuck around, and you're just part of a group, and it was very similar than being in high school. It was very similar than like I always when I ever worked somewhere, I was part of a group, but.
Yeah, and you go out for
having
supper,
my own business, constantly feel alone. Constantly searching and seeking people like me that feel alone, and I couldn't find them.
Yeah.
And if I would find them, they would try to fucking sell me something.
Right.
I'm like, no, man, I'm not, you're not getting this. I don't want to buy anything. I don't want to buy a product. I don't. Like,
I just need connection.
Yeah,
with someone
who
thinks like
I'm
me.
looking for connection.
Right.
And obviously, if it's not organized, then either I would be too demanding, or they would be too, too weird. And it just, I never saw anywhere that could organize such a thing. And I did participate in a lot of business groups, right? Business association. But dude, it was all on the fucking surface. Like, there was a guy in a suit, and that was all you knew. And it was always, we do this and we do that. And I was like, okay, well, what about you? Who are you, right? I don't know. You must have experienced this too, like in business meetings, like, we do this, and who the fuck is we, man? Like, what about you?
Yeah,
it's you and your company is not really a person. So, like, the conversation was always, we do this, we do that.
Right.
Today, when I'm somewhere and a guy starts with we do, I say, all right, stop, man. Like, forget the we. Like, tell me about you. Because I'm going to tell you about me. I'm going to tell you about me, right? And then I'm going to tell you about me in my company, right? So this whole association of people with logos, like I remember in oil and gas for years, I used to worship guys that were associated to big logos like Chevron, Shell, ExxonMobil, and like the title and the logo would make the man in front of me. And for fucking years, I would worship those guys. To your point, dude, they were like the fucking therapist. I didn't know anything about them other than the association with the logo, and it's on me to make those assumptions.
Right.
And my expectations changed when I started seeing, when I talk to a businessman or talk to a guy in business, my expectation has changed in terms of who he is. Like, I look for someone that talks to me about himself. Today, I had a conversation over the phone with a guy that reached out and has been trying to reach out to us for a while and wanted to talk. And so he reached out, we connect, and we had a conversation. And, he wanted to partner up on some stuff, and we typically don't partner up with anything. We're very clear on what we do. We have a big association in Warrior Week, and we put guys in contact with each other. But Warrior itself doesn't really work strategically with anybody else because that's who we are. We have a very clear message, and that is be you, right? So we are being ourselves. So the guy wanted to collaborate, and I told him, but the guy, the way he presented himself, he presented him. He said he was married, 2 kids, and this and that. I connected with him on that side. And I told him straightforward, hey, man, like, we're not really doing any business partnership, any strategic partnership. But, I appreciate the man on the other side of the phone.
Right.
And, you're a family guy, you're a business guy, and this is who we are. Would love to have you in one of our events as our guest just to experience this association. And we had a 30-minute conversation that had nothing to do with the business pitch initially. And he's going to come to one of our events soon as a guest. And who knows where it goes from there. But that's who I've become. In the past, that conversation would have been about trying to find value. I used to do all the time, trying to find value in what they do and what we do and how we can actually partner up, which we truly I never fucking partner up with anyone. None of the partnership that I built in my mind with other companies and other people ever capitalized. Because I realized today that all I was looking in my mind, I was looking for a connection with another man, right, with another human. So I might have used those businesses as a way to merge and connect and say we partner up, and so there is hope, right? I look back and none of those fucking partnerships ever worked. None of it. Like nothing. All the ideas of we can do this, you guys got hardware, we got software, we can partner up. None of it came together from a place that I wanted, which was that connection. Maybe they came together systematically because the client demanded them and us working on the project, right? And then that connection was never truly forged, but was forced.
Right.
So I look back today and say, to your point, connection is everything that we look for, right? And so if connection is everything that we look for, then connection is what we look for in marriage. Connection was what we look for in spirituality. Connection was what we look for in our development of our body, as in just the discovery of the body. And unfortunately, we quit.
Right.
We quit on connection.
Right.
But yet it's in the background of our mind, of our soul, of our being that we want it.
Yeah, we need it. We crave it and we really need it. But we do give up on finding it because no one's really being real with each other. No one's really talking truth. It's posturing and positioning and how can I make you think I'm bringing value so we can do something together instead of being honest with you about things that are happening in my life and then still seeing if we can do something together from a foundation of truth.
Yes.
So I'm no less talented because I'm having troubles.
Yeah.
But I don't want to talk about them sometimes, or I think you'll perceive me as less valuable.
Yes.
In reality, I think where we're at now, we see someone as more valuable if they can open up and talk about their.
You said something like there's nothing like pain that connects people together. Pleasure can connect people, but there's nothing like pain.
Right.
And you've heard this over and over at Warriors that, pain shared is pain divided.
Yes.
And so that's what Warrior created, an environment, a place, circumstances and such where pain can be shared. And the thing is, pain is a series of problems that we carry. Sometimes pain is our relationship. Sometimes pain is the business and in the marketplace. But you're right. Nobody really introduces themselves with their problems. Everybody introduces themselves with their solution.
Right.
And so if you have all the fucking solution, then what about your fucking problems? Because you're right. If the therapist fucking sitting there, if that therapist would actually open up by saying, here's how my life is fucked up and here's how I'm dealing with this situation, doesn't make me less qualified to fucking advise you on what is going on.
Right.
That's an icebreaker right there for you because there's a level of connection that takes place. You're like, okay, well, this motherfucker is as fucked up as I am, or he's even more fucked up, or he has problems, right? But at the same time, he has experience and education in a field which I lack of.
Right.
So I'm going to listen to this.
Right.
Versus, what is your typical therapy session? typical therapy session is, well, I'm going to sit down and listen to you.
Completely one-sided. There's
Complete one-sided.
no sharing on his
No.
part of it.
How do you feel? You feel small
Yeah,
to begin with.
absolutely.
You feel less than.
right.
You
Right.
feel like less than. You feel defeated. The fact that you're sitting on the fucking chair already is like, I'm not successful. I'm not worthy. I'm defeated. You know, will this person help me or not? I don't know. Like, it's all on, like, it doesn't. How do you expect a teenager that does therapy to actually see the possibility of winning? It's
Right.
a loss, man.
Right.
And all that needs to happen is a frame that needs to be put on by the therapist that says, listen, bro, here's how fucked up I am.
Right.
And this is what I did. Here's what I did. This week, I fucking jerked off on porn all week while being married, and I don't understand why I'm doing this, right? It's a struggle, man.
Right.
But most people laugh at this. But the reality is those that are laughing, they're actually guys that are fucking doing it. But they're so good at posturing and pretending that it doesn't happen that they find it funny when somebody else shares that, and it's like, no, that was weird. That was not weird. That was not weird, right?
Right.
That was the truth. You're uncomfortable in the presence of truth because you're a fucking liar.
Right.
But what if you begin practicing the art of telling the truth,
Yes.
right? And what if that therapist will actually tell you the truth that day,
Yep.
right? That day. You don't need to know about the history of who that person is. You just need to feel that you're in the presence of the truth.
Yes.
And with that opening, the person is like, you have an opportunity to tell your truth.
Right.
And that's yours. I'm not here to judge that truth and say, you know, whether it's right or wrong or whatever that is, but I'm here to give you some perspective based on my education, based of my, you know, the study of human psychology over time and history.
Right. I'm not perfect either, but I do have some things I can share.
I'm like, fuck, yeah, man, that's powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why, motherfucker, you invested 4 years in becoming a psychiatrist. But why hide that?
Yeah.
Because they're afraid that, oh, you know, I got a bad review because some guy thought I was weird. Or like there's a reputation to protect. Reputation of what?
Perception of perfection.
Perception of perfection.
Yeah.
Perception of perfection. When were you chasing perception of perfection in your life?
It definitely in my 30s, you know, I had that feeling like I had to put this front forward, like everything's good.
Yes.
You know, how are you? Good. You know, it's always good.
Yeah.
You know, and the lack of the peer group to be able to tell the truth to.
Yes.
And once you stop telling the truth for a while, then it becomes almost a habit.
Yeah.
And, you know, one of the first things that happens in Warrior is you get hit over the head with the code.
Yes.
How many guys don't even have a code? I really lost my code in my 30s. I had guiding principles that were kind of there, but a solid code that says I live by this code and I'm accountable to other men who live by the same code.
Yes.
And
you know, somebody said this, I don't know who the fuck was it, but it resonated, and you know, when you start telling the truth, you begin living a free life.
yeah.
Okay. That we know. That's not what the guy said. But I'm linking what the guy said to this, right? When you tell the truth, you are free. You truly are free. But we are not truly free until everyone is free.
Oh, right. Right.
And so we can sit here and talk about freedom, but if we are connected, me and you are connected, and we are all connected as one, and if that is the truth that we believe, you may not believe that. If you're hearing this and you don't believe it, you don't have to believe that. But if you believe that the fact that you and I are connected, and then you and I are connected to God, and there's only one, and that one is us, then I can truly not be free if everyone is not free.
Right. Which means we have actually a responsibility to tell the truth ourselves, but to encourage and inspire the people in our group, at least that we can reach or connect with, to also be telling the truth.
And that explains why, over time, during history until now, sitting on this chair, we become seekers of the truth because we are not completely free. How is it that if I tell the truth all the time and I don't lie, I still don't feel free. I how can I, like, scientifically, I need a mathematical formula to explain this. That's how I'm looking at everything now. I'm looking at every feeling, and behind every feeling, there's a scientific mathematic formula that explains it. And so if I'm telling the truth, and truth is supposed to set me free, or truth will set me free, this truth set me free. How come is it that I don't truly feel free? And the only reason is because on the other side of the equation, there are so many others that are not free. And yet they have an experience telling the truth.
Yeah.
To free themselves.
Right.
And I can't jump on the other side of the equation and start, like, figuring out X, Y, and Z. I've already figured out my side, right?
Right.
So am I on waiting? Maybe. But it needs to balance out. I'm on this side. I'm seeking it because I don't feel free. And on the other side, so truly, we are truly never free until everyone is free. And that may not happen during our lifetime.
Right.
You and I may not be here, and this is not something that's gonna get solved like this. With 7 billion on the planet, good luck.
Yeah, right.
It's a 7 billion. It's a 7 billion entity. There's a 7 billion fucking variables in this equation.
And we have to protect our own freedom and our own truth, because even though one day we might be telling the truth 100%, and it's so easy to slip just a little bit, and all of a sudden I'm not telling the truth 100%, or I'm believing stories that aren't really true. So
yes.
it's not a do it once and forget about it. Like,
yes.
I told the truth and now I'm good for the rest of my life. It's every single day.
Correct. So if you take that at X and Y, X plus Y equals 0. X being you, Y being me. A variable, right?
Right.
You're a variable, you're X. I'm a variable, I'm Y.
Yeah.
But we solve this equation and it's equals 0, which means what?
That we would be free.
Which means me and you are equal.
Telling the truth. Yeah.
Me and you are equal.
Right.
That's the definition of that.
Right.
But now take those two variables and replace it by 7 billion variables.
Yeah.
That has to balance equal 0.
Right. Wow. Good luck. But that's
the complexity.
And it's part of our calling. It's part of our mission too.
That's the complexity.
Right.
Not just good luck to me.
Right.
Good luck to any fucking religion that is going to solve that.
Right. But if we incorporate that into part of our calling towards others, we can do what each of us can do to reach and wake up as many guys as we can and inspire others to also tell the truth.
Correct.
Then we can at least move towards our goal.
Correct.
But it brings such a it brings a deepness or a depth to
it
our
requires
calling.
massive amount of awareness.
Yes.
Something as massive as the atmosphere and the oxygen in it.
Yeah.
To affect everyone, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of influence that it requires. Is it possible? Could be. Could be. We've gone on the moon. We've done all kind of shit.
Yeah.
Could it be possible that we turn the gas in the atmosphere into a awareness gas that puts everybody equal and everybody says the truth and could be.
At some point, guys must start believing that telling a lie is better than telling the truth. There must be that belief. They think somehow I'm going to get ahead by lying.
That happens when we're kids.
Yeah.
Because the conditions and the environment are created for us not to get in trouble, so we start lying. That's the first time we start experiencing lies.
Right.
But who creates the condition? Adults. And then even though if you're a good dad and good parents, like, things are going to get out of control when your kids are going to be in school, when your kids are going to be in society, and when, like, it's just a constant game of guilt and shame and hiding the guilt and shame that creates the lies.
Right.
And like you can't prevent it. You can't prevent it. All you can do is just be the version of you are and transfer that into the next generation.
Absolutely. And people have a scale, like, if you do this, you're a bad person.
Correct.
Or if you do this, that's a
Correct.
bad thing.
Correct.
But the very people who are pointing the finger at someone saying, that's bad, you're bad, they're not telling the truth.
No, it's true.
And that's a deeper problem, I believe.
Well, that's the categorization of anything that is done or said by itself defaults to lies.
Right.
So
right.
because you're not giving the permission or creating the condition for the person to be
Right.
that experience, because that experience is considered wrong or right.
Yeah.
Based on who? Based on a culture, based on a rules, association, based on conditions of living, geography and environments.
Right.
It's a very complex formula. So bring down back to X and Y. You and I in the room. In this room, you and I, if we set ourselves free, then we can experience freedom in this container.
Right.
So what the guy said, I'm going to argue what the fucking guy said, because he said, we're truly never free until everyone is free. I said, cool. That is absolutely, that fucking resonates. How about we start thinking we are truly never free until the people in our association and the people that we are connected to are not free.
Right.
Now it changes the game.
Right.
Because if I'm connected to my wife and my kids as my primary association, then I can say I'm truly never free until my wife and my kids are not free. And now in a very smaller ecosystem, you can begin to see the possibility of freeing the family, right? Now we practice telling the truth. Our kids are part of it. So I can truly never be free until everyone is free.
I like that from the sense that it gives me a deep sense of calling.
Yes.
On the other hand, it can't be that I would have to rely on anyone else's actions or choices
Correct.
for me to be free.
Correct.
So I think there's a truth there that I can be free based on my own actions and experience of
Correct.
telling the truth, but there's a calling to get the people in my association, because what good is my association if we're all not free?
What good is your association if they're lying?
Right.
That's the whole point.
Right.
The side that you're seeing is the dilemma, is that the fact that if you are feeling this dilemma, then that person does not need to be in your association.
Right.
The minute you have a liar in your association, you are not free.
Right. Right. Especially when you're a family you're kind of stuck with sometimes.
Fuck yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Right. Right.
The minute you are not cutting off that association, you're tolerating lies.
Right.
And if I'm tolerating lies, I'm a fucking liar, and therefore I'm not free. Dude, this is all mathematics. It's X, Y, and Z. Who the fuck is in this equation? If Z is a fucking liar, then we're not going to get to the truth.
Right.
Because Z is unknown.
Right. I like it.
So the point of this is we're not truly free. We're not truly free until everyone is free. Everyone. Now we break it down. Say, okay, everyone is cool. 7 billion is a complicated fucking equation. Let's break it down to everyone in our association. What does association means? Well, everyone that we actually care for and love.
Right.
Okay.
And the more important things in life are the unseen things.
Yes.
Not saying, "Oh, you're bad because you smoke."
No.
Well, they should say to you, "Well, you're a fucking liar."
Yeah.
You know, whoa, that's way worse.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And you think of these groups of people that get together or church groups, my background.
Yes.
There's a strong sense of what's right and what's wrong. Half the people walking into that room on any given Sunday are liars.
Yeah.
And yet we're talking about these external things, you
Correct.
know? And then what if, imagine running a church service where everyone walks in and you say, okay, if you read your Bible every day this week, stand up.
Yes.
The rest of you go in the room.
Yes.
And think about why you didn't. You
Yes.
know? That's kind of how warrior. That's why I tried within the church setting to have a leadership role and these kind of things, but it wasn't wired, at least for me, the way warrior is, because in warrior there's accountability.
Yes.
There's requirements and accountability and connection.
Yes.
The connection is around truth.
Correct.
It's around accountability, and it's around visibility.
Correct.
And that is so powerful.
Tolerance is, if you practice tolerance, if you practice tolerance, truly, if you practice tolerance from a place of freedom and truth, then it's called compassion. And so when you are compassion, you heal and you help.
Right.
When you tolerate, you actually accept the lies.
Right. Right.
And when you accept the lies, you're a fucking liar by yourself. So therefore, you cannot heal anyone.
Right. So compassion is the key.
Compassion,
Not
because
tolerance.
us as human, including you and I, all the time, we'll be lying every fucking 10 seconds. There's gonna be a lie coming out of our mouth. But we have the sense of awareness is, okay, that's a lie, that's not a lie. I shouldn't be lying. I shouldn't be repeating that. There's always course correction.
Yes.
Like to sit here and say, I don't fucking lie, it just physically not possible because we are conditioned to do that.
So I love the philosophy of Warrior that when you wake up in the morning,
Yeah.
it's a new day.
It is a new day.
We're not focused on trying to drag something from yesterday into today and fixing that. Yesterday was yesterday.
Correct.
Let's wake up today and let's do our very best
Yes.
to be our best.
Yes.
And every day is a new day. That's a freeing, fantastically freeing thought.
Every day is a new day unless you carry the lie from yesterday.
Right. Right.
When you carry the lie from yesterday, that's part of the future.
Right.
And the truth should be part of the past.
Right.
But what we do is that we lie, and therefore it becomes part of our future.
Right. As we carry the guilt with us.
Yeah, well, think about it. You tell a lie, and then you close your eyes, and you're gone. God knows where. Then you wake up. That lie exists in the new day.
Right. Unless you're open to telling the truth that day.
And then, yes, and then the truth becomes part of the past.
Right. Right.
So we tolerate lies, and we tolerate telling lies. And once we translate this tolerance to compassion, therefore we can be forgiven, right? We can forgive people, and we can forgive ourselves for lying, because that's what it is. You know, when you look at, people that hurt each other, it is lies that hurt each other. And sometimes lies are done in form of action. That action is a lie.
Right. Right.
And ultimately, if that person would do a truthful action, that person is free, you are free, and the lie doesn't exist.
Yep. That's so good. That's so good.
So, Warrior Week 53. First night, deep into the pit. Totally different experience. What was your pit then?
Warrior Week 53, the pit was feeling for me like there was still, I've been a part of Warrior for 2.5 years at that point, so I'd done a lot of work and dealt with a lot of things. So the pit on the second round was just knowing there was still some lying. I still, as you peel back the layers of the onion, you think, wow, I've got it made, and then you realize, no, I didn't. And so the pit was just moving more and more towards the man that I was seeking to become, the man that I was chasing down to become into the future. There was a protocol that we went through. I was in one particular business partnership that just didn't go right, and it was one of those where it affected me emotionally deeply for a couple of years, and it was really a time in my life where I wasn't moving forward. And we did an iteration in that underground area there.
Yeah.
And if there was anyone that we hadn't forgiven, we were to to write down their name and talk about that, and then imagine a sort of a umbilical cord from them to us, and imagine cutting it.
Yes.
And then imagine that person handing us a gift.
Yes.
And in this business partnership at the time, I felt like I had been, I had lost some things as a result of that partnership over time. And the gift that person gave me in my mind's eye as you were running us through this protocol was a red ruby. And I never think about rubies ever. Like, that's not even in my frame of reference. But I received a red ruby. And I looked it up later online, and a ruby was the jewel of a king. And I really felt like that message to me was, you're a king, the freedom that came to me from letting that unforgiveness go, and that new sense of being a king, and it's almost hard to describe, but it was very powerful. And so definitely part of my pit was unforgiveness, and then the joy of releasing it. And it's amazing. You have these protocols, these little things that we do, but then, God takes over and gets involved in the simple things that we're doing, and frees us in ways that we weren't expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a big setup for all of us, right?
Yeah.
The trainers, the students going through the process, everybody is set up by the man upstairs.
Right.
And everybody's there for the right reason. For all, who the fuck would think about a red ruby, right?
Yeah.
How does that show up? It's unknown to us. It's known to the man upstairs, and
it's been part of my soul ever since.
It is,
and it's been healing.
It is.
I was very appreciative of that.
It is. It is the gift of forgiveness, and that you've received in exchange of letting go.
Right.
Right. So letting go a lie that is no longer part of your future, and that's exactly what we were talking about.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So cool stuff.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks for being on the show. We had an awesome fucking conversation. If you would leave a message here, and message would be to like someone like you in your world, like, not more, not less, just like, dude, just like you, a guy listening to this right now, what would be your message, Christian?
I think if there's someone listening to this who is in the similar situation, they've started a business, they've had kids, and they're just finding that they're a little lost or a little confused or a little disconnected, I would encourage them to, wakeupwarrior.com and consider becoming a part of the Wake Up Warrior movement, because it's a unique group, a unique tribe of powerful men that we don't get to associate in our normal daily connections. And there's just a ton of value of considering moving from playing alone and being by yourself, and consider coming into a tribe, and consider getting back into that. There's such a masculine energy that happens within this tribe of truthful hunters.
Yeah.
that are seeking expansion in every area of their life. So definitely, if someone's listening to this podcast, I think right after they're done, they should go to wakeupwarrior.com and consider becoming a part of this,
Beautiful.
of this amazing movement.
Well, there you have it. And if you're listening to this podcast and you've been one of the guys that listen to these podcasts, there's one thing that I would ask you, and that is to simply forward this to one person. I don't care about you sharing this on Facebook or some generic shares. Like, we are not looking for popularity at all. But what we are looking for is for this message to be pursed inside of someone's heart. And if we can awaken one man, then we have served our mission today. So if you on the other side are resonating with this message and have identified a man in your life that could benefit from this message, just copy the link and fucking send it to him and just say, dude, listen to this. That's all. So if you can do that, that's all we ask at the end of each podcast. And for more on the podcast, you can go on warriorweeknow.com. You can download this on iTunes and actually have more videos and transcripts and quotes and questions that are put into warriorweeknow.com, as the details of the podcast will be shared in that. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for being here, Christian.
Thank you, Coach Sam, very much.